Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by MyBookie. You play, you win, you get paid. My name is Joe Kuzma, and we've got some interesting stuff to talk about, folks. That's why I brought Mr. Brian E. Roach back aboard. He is here live in the flesh, and both of us, well, either we signed our tenders or we didn't have them to begin with, but we're here and we don't get to take a day off, apparently. How you doing, Brian?
I'm great. I don't remember actually signing my tender. Can I take a vacation now?
Yes, you could sit till week 10 or whatever it is. Everybody knows what we're talking about already, but before we jump on the Le'Veon Bell watch train, which we were trying to hold out to see what was going on, he's already ineligible since he did not sign his franchise tag or his franchise tender. He's not on the 53-man roster. He's a roster exemption. It's not like he can go play with anybody else. He's not a free agent, but he's also ineligible for Sunday's game, even if he signs it now. Even if there weren't NFL rules and whatnot for that, there's no way that they would just throw and integrate him into the offense. However, before I jump on that, just did the show on the whole trying to watch the Steelers type deal if you're watching from home, and it never fails. You know, you record a show like this, and this will probably happen again. Watch Bell show up today or something after we talk smack about it. But the NFL releases something about the streaming TV and not requiring a provider login, I guess maybe for the NFL app. And they're trying to, what they're trying to do is with the decline in some TV ratings, which maybe for a variety of reasons. You don't want to read into that too much because trust me, me and Brian were talking about this off the air, and it's like, I'm a cord cutter if you didn't hear from the last episode. So, I mean, I don't watch nearly as much TV as I used to. I use a pair of rabbit ears, the old antenna, to pull in like CBS or Fox in order to watch the NFL games. And apparently, I guess what the NFL is doing now is in order to have a provider login, you have to have, you know, a cable or a satellite package or at least one of these cord cutting options like a Sling TV, DirecTV Now, YouTube TV, whatever it may be. And they're bypassing that, and they're going to allow you to watch games, I guess, live through the NFL app. I don't know how this exactly works yet. There was an article, I believe, retweeted also on our Steel City Underground account on Twitter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you want to go check that out, go ahead. They allow you to get a few free reads on their site before requiring a subscription. So that information, and it's probably available as just a press release because it was from the Associated Press as the original source. So go ahead and check that out. However, this won't affect most of you because you're not going to be able to watch the Steelers unless you're in the Pittsburgh broadcast area. So it's still going to use like GPS and things like that to find out if you're in a blackout type situation. So for the majority of you that are outside those limits, you're still going to want to refer back to the last episode for some ways to watch games out of market. So just putting that stamp of not really a retraction, kind of an addendum, because I'm just like, really? It was like the first thing like yesterday morning. I must have had the show up for an hour or two, and that article was published. So that always tends to bite me in the butt. Speaking of biting in the butt, Mr. I want $17 million, operating under a $14.5 million franchise tag, apparently can afford to let not get $800 and some thousand a week. Now, he still hasn't signed yet. I'm kind of interested, like, what's the cutoff for pay? You get a paycheck because, you know, you're on a roster or you signed it before the game because it's 1/17th. So they get paid 17 weeks during the regular season. Their checks are divvied up, and that's how these guys get paid, sans a bonus or anything like that. And, you know, he wanted all of this money. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, I need to preserve my body. Well, so much for having that record-setting season, right, Brian?
Yeah, you know, with his agent coming out and saying he's going to protect his long-term value, whatever that means, you know, and the speculation being that Bell wants to know that they're not going to run his wheels off this season before he's willing to come in. That's first of all, that's just nuts. As Marquise Pouncey said, that's crazy. That's not how you play football. I don't know who to blame. I don't know whether his agent is giving him ridiculous advice or if Bell's just got his head stuck up his posterior and thinking nuts. I get it. I mean, I get, you feel like I don't want to get burnt out and have to deal with all these carries and everything else. But you know what? That's why you come to training camp, so that you harden your body, so that you get used to the contact instead of showing up now. Now, as to when he gets paid, he's lost this game check. It doesn't matter unless he's active for this game on the active roster. He's not getting paid.
Okay. I wasn't quite clear. So, I mean, if he's ineligible, I already knew that the deadline was Wednesday. He had to show up in whatever, because it has to deal with like practice reports and injury reports and roster and transactions and all of these other things. That's why you always see these moves on like Saturdays and then Mondays and Tuesdays around the league when teams are playing on like Sundays. I think that's different, obviously, if you're playing like a Monday night or Thursday night or whatever.
Right.
But this was the quote, and this is funny because somebody was like, haha, nice one. You got the wrong time on this. No, I screen captured it just in case he went back and deleted it. This is a real tweet. You could go find it from March 5th from Le'Veon Bell's account. And it's, he says, Pittsburgh, the city that took in a 21-year-old kid from small town Ohio, the city I battled through adversity in, the city that I became a man in. I love everything about being a Pittsburgh Steeler, and I want nothing more than to finish the rest of my career in Pitt, #26 forever. That has not aged well, but if you remember back in like March, and you're talking combine and draft and initially, before the draft anyways, when you're talking back in March and stuff, and everything was good. You talked to Le'Veon Bell, yeah, we're talking. Things are working out all right. His agent's saying stuff like that. Kevin Colbert, yeah, we've had discussions. And then all of a sudden it was like, right before the draft, hey, we're only going to focus on the draft. The Steelers come out. We're not going to negotiate until after the draft, because they were they were tired of this, and they had to focus on getting prepared and getting their roster ready for the 2018 season. So this has gone on since the previous year, where at least this year, according to maybe several reports, things that leaked, the offer to Le'Veon Bell was bumped at least maybe once or twice. So he was offered maybe several times something better in the neighborhood of $14 million, in the neighborhood of what he would be playing for under the franchise tag. Now, he's not going to make that now. And I was doing some of the calculations, too. I was thinking if he missed half the season, I think it was like 8 games or something, he's going to miss out on, I had it here. It was like let me see if I still have it up here. $6.82 million if he were to skip half the season. Now, I know we're really kicking that can down the road, but we don't know what he's thinking. He's not communicating with everyone. This has come as a surprise to everyone. All of his offensive linemen, Ben Roethlisberger, you even have Cam Hayward, the captain of the defense, they all put him on blast, some more politically correct than others, softening that blow. I don't even know if they want to welcome this guy back in the locker room, but if you take $6.82 million and subtract the 14.5, guess what? He's no longer the highest paid running back in the NFL. Not that it matters, because you actually have to play to be an NFL running back, set records, etc.
Yeah, look, I did a couple video podcasts back a while ago where I ranted about Bell, and I said in those that I have come to the conclusion that of two things. First, Bell is a great game player. He has tried very hard to put himself into a persona of, I'm yay team, I'm a team guy, this is where I want to be, I love this place, and it's bull. It's the face he tries to paint for the fans, but his actions speak completely different words than what he's been posting and saying. So he's putting out there, trying to put out a message for the fan base that says, yeah, I'm your guy. I want to stay here. It's that mean corporate entity that won't let me do it. And at the same time, when you look at the offer that he got, supposedly, based on what Ian Rappaport reported, a $10 million signing bonus, he'd have made $33 million over the first 2 years and $45 million over the first 3, a total of $70 million for 5. You know, and the complaint is, well, only $10 million is guaranteed. We know the Steelers don't give guaranteed money that same way, but you know what? It's a rolling guaranteed structure where he was going to get, if he was going to be around and the Steelers honor these contracts, almost nobody, and I won't say it never happens, but very rarely does a player of Bell's stature sign a deal and not get paid out for the deal. So, you know, instead, now you're really talking about what would have amounted to $45 million in guarantees, and they take care of him. Look, Ryan Shazier got hurt. Did they screw him? No.
Lamar Woodley.
Yeah, do they cut back on it? They get paid. So, you know, if he puts himself out on the line, he would have gotten this money. I think based on some of the stuff that's been coming out, now that he's seen the Khalil Mack deal and he's seen the Aaron Donald deal, he thinks he's going to get that kind of money, and he's nuts. He's not. He's not going to get Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack money. It's not going to happen.
No, and I totally agree with you. He's already the highest paid running back, and now all of a sudden, for a guy that was quibbling over a few $1 million or a few million guaranteed, to not sign a franchise tender that fully guarantees $14.5 million and will sit on his duff and let $750,000 waste away out of his wallet each week. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what? This is just, I don't know. Like, do you just want to retire now, or is it in your head? Remember the old, what was that? The old Chuck Noll thing. If you're thinking retirement, you're already retired.
You're already retired.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But this doesn't really end for the Steelers. And you know what? Here's the real reason. If it sounds like everyone is against Bell now, look, we've defended the fact the recourse that players have is to sit out. To kind of protest in their own way what they're being paid for a contract or whatever. That's about the only recourse that they have, and you could side with the employee or the management in either case or both, and we see it from both ways. However, Le'Veon Bell, the deadline's been gone since July. Beginning of July, like I don't remember the exact date, but it was probably around the 4th of July, give or take before or after a couple days, somewhere whereabouts that neighborhood there. So from after the draft through that, and then of course, whenever they had the cutoff date that they said we aren't doing this, let's say a month before the draft, and all the way through since the Jacksonville game, you had to think there's been talks, there's been back and forth, there's been offers, there's been math done to see can we afford and keep this guy. And trust me, the Steelers in the past have had these contract squabbles with even like Alan Faneca and some very popular players, Mike Wallace. In some cases, like Wallace, they just couldn't afford it, or Alan Faneca probably cap space as well back then. And, hey, how much do you got left in your career? You're looking for what's going to happen in the future, not past performance. But Bell cannot make any more money right now. So this isn't Khalil Mack where, I don't know. You'd have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm trying to think like if he's under a franchise tag and even got, let's say he signed it and he signed it because he forced a trade with the Steelers. Like he still has to operate under that franchise tag. This isn't like a normal player contract where if he signed it now, the Steelers could extend him 3 or 4 years and bring in the giant boatload of money. It's done. There's nothing else you can do. This looks senseless right now. You're costing yourself money. You're drawing the ire of the fan base and your team because you're not out there doing what you say you want to do, and that is be the best running back in football. Now, I have to bring out something that I was listening to this on Sirius XM NFL Radio. Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller, they have the afternoon drive or whatever the show is called, but Pat was saying no one will give him credit. I'm giving you credit, Pat, on this one. It was something I didn't consider, it was something the rest of us really didn't consider, and that's the Steelers placing a transition tag on Le'Veon Bell next year. Now, if the guy doesn't play for you all year or half the year and you're not on the best of terms, I'm not sure why you would want to trap him into your system, but maybe you do. Maybe this might backfire on him. There will be a market for him. I don't know if it'll be the market that he thinks that he wants. Like you said, Khalil Mack money. That's never going to happen. And the money he's about to lose by sitting out however many weeks that he thinks he's going to sit out, the Steelers can throw the old transition tag on him from what it looks like. Now, they're talking about this from a legal aspect. Pat wasn't exactly sure because this has never happened in the NFL before where you've had a player who's been franchise tagged multiple times, but a transition tag is one of the three types of tags. You hear about it very rarely. If you remember, Jason Worlds was put under a transition tag several years ago because they didn't want to lose him, and it was going to cost whatever. And another team, basically, what this allows you to do is have first right of refusal. So if Le'Veon Bell gets an offer from another team, we'll just throw somebody out there. I don't know if they probably have cap space, maybe. The New York Jets. Let's say the New York Jets were interested in Le'Veon Bell. And they offer him, I don't know, $15 million. And the Steelers look at that and say, well, you know what? That extra $1 million, we could get it from here. Well, we cut Landry Jones, and I had to throw that in there. And got a little bit of savings. And we can afford to do that. And you know what? We're gonna take that offer. It could backfire on him if it's not the right deal. If he does not get a sweetheart of a deal above and beyond, what's it gonna take? He's gonna need like $20 million from a team. I don't see anybody paying that. If this is within the rights and there's no let's say grievance or anything with the players union to try to fight this, because the transition's usually not used after the franchise tag at all. But this would give the Steelers. This still gives the Steelers leverage over Le'Veon Bell, even in the 2019, possibly.
Well, absolutely it does. I mean, they can transit. They could franchise tag him again. They could even franchise tag him non-exclusive. Now they're not going to, because the cost is ridiculous. It would be like $25 million. It's upwards above $20 million. It's so outrageous that they're not going to do that. But they could if they wanted to. And if he insists that he's not going to play again, under that tag, if they had given him, and this is why I had said this before they tagged him this year, I said, put him on the non-exclusive tag. Let him shop himself. If he shops himself out there and somebody's willing to give up 2 first-round picks for him, hooray. Nobody was gonna, but at least he might have gotten some idea, maybe some realistic notion of what other teams are going to value him at. Now, as far as the transition tag goes, they could do it. They can do it. Again, will they? The Steelers don't tend to be vindictive with players. They're not going to go out of their way to damage a player. It's business to them, and they're very professional about it. So it's very unlikely that they would try and, look at this situation and go, well, he's being, kind of a jerk. We'll be jerks too. That's not the way they operate. It's very unlikely that they would do this, but they could. I think the other thing that could happen, because look, people are under this misconception, and you said this, they're under this misconception that Bell is still lobbying for a contract now. He's not. Folks out there in Steelers Nation and the world, understand this. There is no more negotiations this year. You can't just say pay the man. They can't pay the man anymore. He turned his nose up at $70 million, and they can't pay him now. All they can pay him is $14.5 million because that's the rules of the game. The next time he has an opportunity to get paid will be after this season, not before. Now, that's just the way it is. So, stop with the pay the man stuff. You can't anymore.
Yeah, pay the man is sign your franchise tag, and that's how you get paid, and don't sit out. So, but there's a lot of ire over this, and this is all justified now for that very reason. You're sitting out why? Now you're losing the money that you say you want. It's hypocritical. There's there's no other way of cutting it. And you're looking at potentially, yet again, one of the most talented Steelers teams within the window of Ben Roethlisberger, still in his prime, but nearing, maybe the twilight years of his career, and ditto for Antonio Brown now, too, who's starting to get a little dinged up, from last year on in through training camp this year. It's something you got to consider, and Bell is not helping for as much as he says he wants to be a Steeler for life, or hashtag 26 forever and all this other stuff. So the good news is, and you see all the memes and everything else coming out, is that I think the Steelers, I think the fan base, I think everybody feels pretty confident about a life without Le'Veon Bell, because we've gotten a taste of what James Conner looks like this year. We had a taste of what he could look like last year. Le'Veon Bell had some rust on him. It was a slow start. He didn't necessarily have these big explosive long runs and this amazing yards per carry average. And preserving your body, you're getting, you may not be getting hit, but you're still aging. And that Father Time catches up with you, especially running backs. Probably the shortest window. I understand that's why he wants to get paid. But at the same time, if you're not out there, other teams got to be thinking, well, is this guy going to, be in the first year of a contract or second year of a contract, and all of a sudden somebody else signs the newest, biggest deal, and he's going to sit out of camp or whatever else? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's got to be your concern. You know what else is a concern? And the reason this probably ticks people off more than, let's say, Antonio Brown didn't really do anything. I know people were upset with Mike Wallace back in the day and others that were in this type of position and sat out camp. Mike Wallace was never suspended for substance abuse or anything within that policy, and Bell has done that twice, and this team's also stuck through him through 2 serious injuries, and they've been with him every step of the way. It's like the footprints in the sand thing, if you've ever seen the poem or whatever. The Steelers are with him every step of the way along this and carried him where you only see one set of footprints at time. And I think that's why it draws more ire than anything else. So I'm going to close out that topic because we need to talk about Conner and those guys and the upcoming game on Sunday and focus on it just like the rest of the team. But Brian, if you got anything else on the Bell topic, I'll let you say your piece as well.
All right, yeah, I want to reemphasize what you're saying about the appearance here. What does this tell the rest of the league about Le'Veon Bell? Does it tell them that this is a guy they can work with, or does it tell them that this is a diva and a difficult player? Teams don't pretend that teams don't pay attention to this. They don't need this kind of drama in their world. They don't need this kind of frustration. He's not painting a picture that is helping his case. And that's why to me, an agent's job is to guide the player into making the right decisions and then make the best negotiations he can for the player. And who knows what, his agent is saying to him, but if he's not saying, this is dumb, stop doing this, then he's doing a disservice to Le'Veon Bell, because he's painting a picture of a selfish player. He's painting a picture of a guy who is not team first, but is definitely me first. Ramon Foster put out a great tweet yesterday that I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I know I'll screw it up because I don't have it in front of me, but it essentially went along like something like this. In what is the ultimate team sport, we've created a team of individuals. And, that's the way this is coming across. It's all about Bell. It's not about team. It's not about his teammates. And I think that's why there is this massive backlash coming out of the locker room. Look, when you tick off the guys who are blocking for you, you're just not the smartest guy on the planet. Now, the other thing, and this will lead into what we want to talk about.
Hold on that. On that note too. Did you see? And I'm not sure which of them said it, but it was at least Pouncey, Foster, and DeCastro all commented publicly. Maybe even Marcus Gilbert did too, all the linemen. And one of them, it may have even been Foster. And Foster's the player rep too. He's the union rep on the team. Said something to the effect of, he's making 5 times more or 10 times more than I am, get out there, and he's making more than however much more or whatever than all of them combined or something. And we're the ones, basically earning you this money. So get your, rear end out on the field was the
Absolutely.
paraphrase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only one that hasn't publicly commented is Gilbert. I think Al said something. I know DeCastro, Pouncey, and Foster were the most vocal, but I think I think it's a pretty universal feeling amongst the offensive line that they feel a bit betrayed at this point. And the issue is, again, he's not in a position where he's creating a bargaining chip. He doesn't actually have any leverage right here to try and force them to change things because they can't. It's impossible. They're beyond the point of negotiation. All he can really do is say, you got to find me a deal. I want out of town. I'll sign my tag when you've got a trade in line for me. And that would equate to they'd have to find a team that's willing to give him a huge offer, negotiate some kind of trade, and then he'd come in and sign and he'd be gone. So it's unlikely that that's going to occur either. It's more than likely that if Bell plays at all this year, he's going to miss several games because he's decided to miss several games. And once he does that, that's the message that his teammates are mad about, because now he's not just monkeying with his own money and his own business. He is impacting everybody else on the team in a negative way. But there is a guy,
and their ability to make money as well, because when they're successful, or if a team wins a Super Bowl, those rosters get rated. You see the money that Chris Hubbard just made signing with the Cleveland Browns this offseason. So it affects everyone in more than one way. Trust me, it's also putting that food on the table.
Yep. Now there is a guy that is giving it a positive impact to, and I'm going to say this about James Conner. Because James Conner's getting an opportunity here, and I'm not going to say for sure that this will happen, but wonder what happens if James Conner comes out and runs for 130, catches the ball for 45, 50 yards in the game, and I wonder how fast Le'Veon Bell shows up.
Yeah, and you know what? That could be possible. We're going to be talking here about the Browns, and we actually have somewhat of a preview to mention here in a moment. I got part of the Foster quote, courtesy of Ed Bouchette in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And Foster says, what do? Here's a guy who doesn't give a damn, I guess, so we'll treat it as such. I just hate it came to this, and this is the part I butchered, sort of, kind of. He's making 7 times what I made, twice as much as Al, meaning Villanueva, is making, and we're the guys who do it for him. And Foster's, in the final year of his contract, had a salary of $2.675 million. So just to give you some frame of reference. Now, onward to the Cleveland Browns. We spent way more time maybe on Le'Veon Bell than we probably should, but that story's not getting buried anytime soon, and it's just another distraction. Jeez, oh man.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I wonder if you can bet on when he shows up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was getting there. I was going to talk about our sponsor, MyBookie. And, well, I have the line here. I have the over-under with the Steelers traveling up to the pit of misery, Dilly Dilly, up in Cleveland.
Dilly Dilly.
I wonder if they're going to find that as funny when I say it later on. I got a guest spot on Cleveland's TV, and they have a sports program up there that airs at 8 o'clock Eastern. If you're listening to this on the Thursday night and you're up in the Northeast Ohio area, tune in. I'll be in to talk about this Browns and Steelers game. Just a little bit of a plug for them and myself at Steel City Underground here. But I'm going to tell them that the pit of misery. They'll probably find it funny, to be honest. Most of the Browns fans realize the situation that they're in. However, the Vegas odd makers and the people who come up with this stuff, such as the folks at MyBookie, have this line set at -4 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty tight, they're thinking, and 44.5 over and under. So if that's something you guys are interested in laying some money on the Steelers, or the other way, taking the points, shame on you. You know what? You know the place to go to, the place that I trust, the place that Brian trusts. You know who you're betting on. It's just as important as who you're betting with. That's why I tell people to go over to my bookie. I mean, it's your best bet this season. So lay down that cash. Still losing my voice, man. Can't get it. But lay down that cash, maybe win big. You know, you got to spend some money to make some money, as I like to say. So if you head on over to MyBookie, they will match your deposit dollar for dollar. If you use the promo code Steel City, you're going to have to put that in as you sign up and activate that offer online at MyBookie, MyBookie. And don't forget to use the promo code Steel City. You play, you win, you get paid. And -4, probably this is an extension of the preseason. I'll be mentioning some of this to the folks in Cleveland as well. I don't walk into this thinking, hey, that team was 0-16 last year and 1-31 or whatever over the last 2 seasons. I still think Hugh Jackson's a tool, but they have an offensive coordinator who actually knows something. His play calling may not be great. That could be their downfall, but this is a Cleveland Browns team that is significantly different now with the general manager, John Dorsey. For those of you who've watched the Hard Knocks, I'm sure you get that vibe. I've had that vibe pretty much with every Hard Knocks, though, so it's kind of cool just taking a look at the inside of how NFL teams operate. And when you look at all the offseason moves that the Cleveland Browns have made, signing Jarvis Landry, all of these draft picks, and then they went out and 5-6 waiver claims, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. That could end up backfiring special teams and whatnot if those guys aren't brought up to speed right away. But new quarterback in town, Tyrod Taylor, another new quarterback in town who shouldn't see time unless something happens with Taylor. That's Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall draft pick. They have new running backs. Duke Johnson's still there, a receiving threat, a guy who catches. You want to talk about wide receiver numbers. Duke Johnson, I don't think anyone's caught more passes or had more receiving yards out of the backfield over maybe the last 3 seasons than Duke Johnson. That's including Le'Veon Bell in that conversation. Duke Johnson is definitely a receiving threat. Don't think for a minute that Todd Haley won't exploit that. There's Carlos Hyde, formerly of the 49ers, who was picked up. There's a second-round draft pick, Nick Chubb, who, for all intents and purposes, looks like he's going to be the guy whenever Hyde gets pushed out of that scene. I think I mentioned they signed Jarvis Landry. They have a rookie, Antonio Callaway. Josh Gordon is returning as a wide receiver. That's a pretty loaded receiver core. Second year now for tight ends. That rookie tight end thing is like a curse, like the Madden football curse in the video game. Maybe David Njoku comes out of this. Darren Fells, a blocking tight end, could do some damage there. I think the biggest weakness on this team offensively is their offensive line. I wasn't necessarily totally sold on J.C. Treader coming over from Green Bay last year as their center. They put Kevin Zeitler, who's a familiar face, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, as their right guard. A more familiar face, we were just talking about him, Chris Hubbard is the starting right tackle. I don't know how that's going to work over as a full-time starter, 16 games. Definitely looked formidable while he had his time here in the Steel City. You go to the left side of the line, however, and you got a rookie, Austin Corbett, and you have as the left guard, and replacing who will be a future Hall of Famer in Joe Thomas is Joel Bitonio, who moves over from guard to tackle because there's a revolving door of guys there, such as I'm not even sure Sean Coleman's still on this roster. I think he may have gotten cut. I don't think he is. No. Yeah, and they picked up Greg Robinson, and they couldn't get him to play on the left either. They had a hole there last year when Thomas got hurt, and now that he retired, they had to move a guard over that, and it's one of the only places I don't think that they really addressed in the draft or free agency. I think they're weak along. I just think the offensive line, it might take time for them to gel. It might not. We'll have to see. You got to hope that the Steelers, though, with their horses up front, that you like to call them, 3 horsemen?
The 3 horsemen, yes.
Yeah, the grown-ass man, Cam Hayward. I think they could put some pressure on this. And, Tyrod Taylor doesn't really turn the ball over a whole lot. And he doesn't necessarily always attempt a lot of passes. He's mobile. It's going to be interesting because they have the guys that if plays get extended, they may be able to do some damage in the air. I think the Steelers' defense better than last year. They got running backs. This is going to be an interesting matchup. I haven't even talked about Steelers offense yet, but just looking at the Browns offense versus the Steelers defense, I'm not sure exactly. What matchups are the big matchups? Obviously, Joe Hayden coming back to Cleveland.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the left side of that line. It's Cam Hayward and Bud Dupree against the left side of that line. I think that's the matchup that's going to swing this game one way or the other. If those guys are getting pressure consistently, and if Dupree can contain that side on what is essentially Taylor's blind side, they should be able to cause a lot of disruption and havoc, and that will make somebody like Joe Hayden and Artie Burns' job a lot easier. Because if Taylor's rushed, if he's got to get the ball out quicker, then that means that they're in better shape. But as you said, he's mobile, so it's going to be really important for them to maintain discipline, which is something that they have had some difficulty doing at times. They got to maintain discipline in their lanes. They can't let him get outside the pocket and run free and extend plays. So, it's going to be up to TJ and Bud to contain him on the outside, Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward to kind of, collapse the pocket along with Javon Hargrave. I don't know how much Josh Gordon is going to play. Jarvis Landry is a concern, but I think we've got the horses to cover Jarvis Landry.
Provided Mike Hilton's 100%, he is a glove. He's Velcro.
Yeah. So I just don't know how much Josh Gordon is going to play as he's, off of his hamstring. He was a limited participant in practice, not full. So, I don't know. I'm sure he'll see some action. I'm sure he'll get in the game. He's too dynamic of a receiver. And to be fair and upfront, I don't know enough about Antonio Callaway to make a judgment about how good he's going to be or how much of an impact he can be.
Yeah, he's, obviously he's a fourth round rookie, and we know what that's like. That's the Martavis Bryant boom or bust there. We'll see. I mean, he dropped an easy pass. I watched some of their preseason football games. I caught some things here or there. The one thing with Taylor is, as a quarterback, I mean, even last season, he completed 62.6% of his passes. However, he only threw for just a yard short of 2,800 yards. So he only throws 4 picks, and that's because he's throwing everything behind the line. And I got to wonder because, Todd Haley ball is, let's throw this sucker deep. I mean, that's kind of I don't know that he's the guy for that. I really don't. So we'll find out. I like the Steelers secondary. I think as long as they could contain the run, which was the, life without Ryan Shazier problem, we're going to see if that's been adjusted. This is going to be a good test. Todd Haley knows everything about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's why this line is only 4 points. And let's face it, there was a tight game that was decided with a blocked punt pretty much in the first minute last year in the very same situation, week 1 at Cleveland. And then they opened up, or at least the Steelers opened up at home with them, and Manziel was playing. And that was the hype a couple of years ago. And that game, it was a blowout in the first half, and the Browns almost rallied, and it was decided by 3 points. It's AFC North football. These teams know each other very well, and you have a coach on the staff who was the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh for 5 years. So I expect this to maybe be tight, especially if, the Steelers come out. It's almost always, and this is just the NFL in general. I mean, very few teams seem like they're fully prepared. You don't have all the starters. They play maybe a quarter if they play a full half of preseason football. They've been practicing, but it's still not a game. There's still, the associated bumps and bruises and whatever with football. And, I always bring up Bill Belichick mentioning that it's an extension of the preseason. Like these first 3-4 weeks, you see some sloppy football, you see penalties. So you just got to make sure if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, that you're not, it's not self-defeating. And this helmet rule worries me. It seems like it cleaned up over the second half of the preseason, but it still worries me that it can flip a game in an instant. So let's hope, because we definitely got the guys that are going to lower their head and lower booms. And, Ben's going to probably get hit in this game. Myles Garrett wants to do nothing more than to hit Ben Roethlisberger. He's not going to get those flags. He just said it on his show the other day. He will never get those flags. But you know who will? The mobile guy that's running around and outside the pocket, they're still going to get for, whatever they want to make up, pretty much.
Well, if we start to see flags like we saw in the preseason where, roughing the passer is I breathed on him, or hey, I tackled him in the appropriate fashion for football.
I love the way
roughing
you said
the passer. I made an appropriate football play and it's a penalty. Then who knows how this is going to go? I mean, if it becomes that egregious that those kind of penalties get called for guys like Tyrod Taylor and Ben's still not getting those calls, then I think that the Steelers have to petition the league for sanity. But Ben's never gotten those kind of calls, and it's unlikely he's going to get them now. It's just this over officiating that seemed to take place in the preseason. If that carries over into the season, who knows what we'll see. I think in my mind, this is going to be a really important game for James Conner and Jalen Samuels. I think it's going to be Jalen Samuels is going to get some third down play, I think, where he can catch the ball, and James Conner is going to get a workload because as good as Myles Garrett is rushing the passer, I don't know how he will hold up under a constant grind where you've got those, because he's not the biggest guy in the world. I mean, he's kind of an undersized defensive end. And if you grind on him for a full game and run the ball and pound the ball, how well does he hold up? I don't know. So, it's early. You don't want to put your franchise quarterback at overt risk. And if the defense can keep the Browns' offense in check for the most part, and we can get a running game established against these guys, that's the recipe I think that works for them in this game. We'll have to see. If James Conner comes in here and has a really good game, then Monday morning Le'Veon Bell will show up. Maybe. Who knows? It's impossible to guess what's in that guy's head anymore. But I just would think if he all of a sudden goes, hey, that's not what I'm thinking about there. They don't look like they need me so bad. I better get back there to remind them that they kind of might need me.
You know what? You make a good point with that when you're talking to Steelers offense on the field. And Le'Veon Bell is an every down back. He takes a lot of predictability away from the Browns' defense. That's one thing he definitely offers, because he could do several things well. Run the football. He could catch the football. So that means it could be a run or pass situation. And he can also block if he doesn't come out of the backfield as a receiver. I think James Conner, from what I saw preseason and training camp this year, doesn't even look like he was hurt last year. I think James Conner is prepared to do all of those things. And if not, you have a guy that you put in the backfield that happens to be a rookie out of the 5th round from NC State that they don't know a whole lot about, that there's no tape on so far other than his college film, and that's Jalen Samuels. And you mix him in there, and I don't know if Jalen Samuels can, block at the NFL level, at least maybe, pitch in here and chip somebody. But you split him out. I don't know. I still like the Steelers' chances here. It's hard. It's hard. The last game was 21-18. That was up at Cleveland. Of course, the very last game was, a lot of guys like Landry Jones and that playing when the season was already wrapped. And that was a 28-24 deal where, the Browns actually, put up some points on the Steelers, mostly their starting defense. So it's the NFL. It's parity. And anything can literally happen. The Steelers have won the past 6 games against the Cleveland Browns. I don't know how much that really sits when there's hardly anybody left on this team that's been around those last 3 seasons even to remember any of this stuff. I mean, I look up and down this roster, and I don't recognize any of these guys. Landry wasn't there. Callaway wasn't there. But Tonio came in 14. He was there. Their left guard, no. Treader, no. Zeitler, no. Hubbard, no. Njoku, no. Njoku's been there for, he's a second-year player. Darren Fells is a free agent they brought in. Tyrod Taylor, new. Carlos Hyde, new. Really, the only guy is Duke Johnson and maybe Josh Gordon, who's, been there part of the time. That's not a whole lot to get fired up on. These guys have a clean slate. They're not going to have any mental mind games playing against them.
Right.
My only real concern is just – staying healthy as it always is. I think the Steelers' offensive line can handle. Myles Garrett will be a handful. He should be. He was a number 1 overall pick. He's shown flashes. This will be his second year, so he's rested up. You don't have all of that, the rookie learning curve, and you don't have all of that crap with the combine and draft weighing in on you the same way we were saying with T.J. Watt, who also has to remain healthy since they only have 3 outside linebackers right now. I think we're going to see Michael Thomas, our boy, maybe rush off the edge a little bit, but I also think they're going to be using a lot of defensive back blitzes, safety blitzes, and things of that nature. The Steelers defense is going to look radically different, I think, just because of what's on paper. But when I look at the Steelers offense, I don't know what the Cleveland Browns are thinking. Like I said, they made a bunch of waiver claims and whatnot. A lot of these guys are coming back over from last year. They got rid of one of the favorites off of Hard Knocks, Carl Nassib, who had, I believe, 12 starts last year. He had 3.5 sacks as a defensive end. They only list the 2 defensive ends are, of course, Garrett and then Emmanuel Ogbah. Ogbah's still kind of a handful. There's Larry Ogunjobi and Trayvon Cooley. Those guys were all there last year. The whole front 7, actually. Jamie Collins, Michael Kendricks got released for, all that trouble that he's in right now. They had brought him over from the Eagles, and they were so deep at linebacker, there were talks of potentially moving one of these guys in a trade. So it's Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey. The secondary is where I think they're going to have their hands full. Denzel Ward's a rookie. From Ohio State, 4th pick overall in the draft. Jabril Peppers, I'm still, I saw a little bit of flashes in the preseason with him too, but still, who's he playing against? Who's his competition? And then you have Demarius Randall, who they traded for from Green Bay, and Terrence Mitchell, who originally came over from Kansas City. So some of these guys are all seasoned, but that secondary is shaken up a little bit, and they've got to go up against – I don't know what's going to happen with Vance McDonald. He participated. He had limited participation. I think he was the only guy on the practice report thus far. But if you have boy, I almost butchered his name. And if you have a healthy Antonio Brown and you have Juju Smith-Schuster and we still haven't unleashed James Washington and you got a couple of other guys that are going to be in this mix like a Ryan Switzer. You still have Jesse James. I mentioned Jalen Samuels. I mentioned James Conner. And the X factor is definitely Big Ben. Ben Roethlisberger plays well in his home state of Ohio. I think it's still going to be a handful for a Browns defense that on probably looked better for the eye test, but still gave up 25 points a game last season. If the Steelers could get at least that, I don't see the Browns offense catching up. So I definitely got the Steelers. Do they cover the spread? It could still be tight.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think that the Steelers are the more talented team. The Steelers are the roster with more on it. They have more playmakers than the Browns do. I expect the Steelers to win. I expect it to be tight because it always seems to be. Will they cover the spread? Maybe. I kind of think that they might eke out a 5-point or a 6-point win here, something like 27-20 or 27-21, somewhere in that range.
And the Yinzers will go crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No matter what happens in this game, because it's not 57-0, because it's not going to be. Get ready. It's not going to be 57-0. It's going to be, oh my God, they're not paying attention. They're not ready. They aren't ready. Let's be honest. This, as we said already, this is an extension of preseason. They're not ready. They're not at full speed. They're an evolving process. Mike Tomlin said in his press conference, this is not a finished product. They're still evolving. And because they aren't playing, Tunch and Wolf say this all the time. They used to run 2-a-days for the first 18 days of training camp. 2-a-days. Nobody does 2-a-days anymore. It's a different situation. It's not the same as it once was. These guys do not get fully prepared in the preseason. It takes a couple games. So let's get used to that. And just don't let me forget helmet worthy before we sign off.
Oh, we'll do that in one moment. Want to wish a happy birthday to Ryan Shazier as well today.
Shay leave.
Yep, that's always going to be some big news. And I just wanted to put. I really just had one other thing about the Yinzers that are out there and their uncanny ability to freak out. What happens if James Conner comes out now and runs 10 times for 32 yards? With just one actual decent run, maybe of like 15 yards for a long. And then, they throw the ball at him maybe about 6 times. He only catches half of those for 15 yards, $5 a piece there. And doesn't find the end zone rushing or receiving. You think everyone's going to freak out and say, get Le'Veon Bell back in here?
Yeah, it leads me into this. This is what I was talking. I got to read this tweet.
Well, let me tell you why I picked those statistics specifically. Those were Bell's stats in week 1 of last year's game.
Exactly. This is from Rich Ormberger, who's some kind of an analyst who used to play football, doesn't anymore, and apparently is concussed.
Yeah.
This is what he said. Le'Veon Bell's teammates are brainwashed. Ownership, management, coaches have these players doing their dirty work. You don't, all caps, comment on someone else's contract. If Bell's holdout succeeds in earning him more money, it benefits the union. This is absurd, all caps, hashtag Team Bell. You, sir, need to go in the protocol. Wait until you understand how contracts work. Did you not ever look at your own contract? Do you understand how franchise tags work in the NFL? This isn't a holdout. He can't get more money. He can only get what he gets right now. There is no way he gets more money out of this from the Steelers. It's not feasible or possible. So your whole line of thought is moronic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're up against it, Brian. So I think most of the people they've already been notified and they've contacted us back about helmet worthy, but let's announce them.
Yep. Okay, so this is our final group of helmet-worthy winners. Stephen Ponciano, and I'm going to butcher your guys' names, so just, forgive me. Griffin,
do it on purpose, makes it better.
Griffin Parararaz. There's way too many ARs in your name, Griffin. I don't know how to say it. Mason Hamill, Emily Stessen-Reuter, and Nicholas Gonsoski. And the coolest thing, 2 of these guys are in Patriots territory.
Ooh, yeah. I knew one was.
Steelers fans in enemy territory. I think one of these guys is in Baltimore. So it's awesome. We'll get the helmets out to you within the next 10, 14 days. I'm a little slow in shipping sometimes. And congratulations. It was a lot of fun to get all the helmet-worthy stuff in. To be honest, we've got some helmets left, so we're going to come up with something else to do with them. But that's going to close the helmet-worthy concept for now, and we'll figure out what to do with the rest of them as time goes by.
Sounds good. Hashtag helmet-worthy. We'll see if we have hashtag bell-worthy. I can't even imagine being in his position and sitting out the week and maybe sitting out multiple weeks and then returning to that locker room. Especially after some of the things that were said. I think they were along the lines of the James Harrison situation last year, and I think everybody's ready to move on. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll see what the Pittsburgh Steelers do against the Cleveland Browns here this upcoming Sunday. Stay tuned, too, because Mike Palaia also returns with his program the following day, and he has a preview. He has a few of his own thoughts on all of the things that are going on as well. So, Brian, thanks once again for joining me, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Always a joy. Even when you're a little nasally.
Yeah, still getting over it, the whole nasal drip thing. So we'll see if I have a better voice after Sunday. After the game, I highly doubt it. But my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Until next time, folks, thank you for the comments, by the way. We've been getting to them on YouTube and everywhere else. Even had to sign up for Podbean. I didn't even know it existed. But I went out there just to look for that one comment that was left there as well. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Until next time, be safe, be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.